Ah, all right. Here we go.
We can go.
Just waiting for Mike to calm me down. There we go. Three, two. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our three and a half webinar for the year 2020. So we'll always have this half thing because the week before, last week, we had a blender. So it was like a half webinar, not a webinar, but like a half webinar. So they told me like two and a half, three and a half, and all of that. So just in case you were wondering. So thank you guys for joining us again. Good evening to everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful day. I know you are now chilling at home, cuddling or whatever you're doing. The weather is very nice outside. It's favoring that behavior. But yeah, so we are joined today by Kesa, who is our guest for today, and I'm so excited. I'm really, 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 really excited for this one because the topic that I want to discuss today is quite interesting and it's personal for me, and I think that's why I said it on my post earlier that this one is for me because it's very much personal. If you know Gessa, you know her as an athlete. That's how I was first introduced to Gessa. But before I go on, let me say hello to Gessa. Hello, Gessa, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for
How are you?
having me. Yeah, it's good to
Yeah,
see you
it's
guys.
good to have
And
you. It's good to have you.
yeah. No, it's been a while, so I'm actually good
Hmm.
that I'm actually happy, excited that I'm finally doing one of these again. It's been a while,
All
man.
right.
It's been a while.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool, perfect, perfect. And I was actually thinking about that earlier today. That you've probably done I don't know how many of these, and I think I know what the subject or what the main subject is always based on, which I think is your athletic career, right? That's I think that's what people usually ask you about. That's what they want you to talk about. But what I wanna talk about today is something that people don't really know about you. Your other profession. I think you are an anthropologist, if I remember correctly. You said you were an anthropologist.
Aspiring.
Aspiring anthropologist.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool, cool. Why anthropology though? Like,
First and foremost, let me just
mhm,
yeah, I do agree with you that I've been doing a lot of these webinars and seminars and interviews throughout the
yeah,
lockdown, and I must say each one of them has been just like I don't know, like it's been different, and
yeah,
I think this one particular it's really gonna hit home because I haven't been doing anything like this in a while. Like a lot of people have been focusing too much on
yeah.
my athletics career and what I do on a daily, like my 9 to 5. But
Mm, mm,
for I don't know, this is actually very interesting. This is very nice. I think I'm actually excited to be speaking about the other part or the other side of my
what
career.
you do? Yeah.
I came to university actually wanting to study something else, but
Hmm.
then I ended up studying anthropology, which is very interesting because then I didn't plan to study anthropology. I just ended up being in that career path, but it was a very sound decision that I had to make because I knew exactly what to do with it. So
Hmm.
what I did was cultural anthropology, and
Yeah.
I'm 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 a very open person. I love interacting with people. I love the humankind as a whole.
Mm.
So I had to study that. I had to do something that relates or resonates with my character. So then I ended up choosing anthropology because I knew how I would have wanted it to be. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. So I
Mm.
wanted to incorporate it with my athletics career. So
Oh,
that's where
okay.
it all started, and yeah, the journey is still on.
Ongoing. That is so interesting. That is really interesting. To incorporate anthropology with your athletics career. I'm curious as to how exactly are you doing that? How is that? Why are you doing that, first of all? Because obviously you're doing it because it's beneficial to you in some way. That's what I want to know. How is it beneficial to you? Why are you doing it that way?
Oh, the reason why I'm doing this is like I've already mentioned, I love people. I like working with people, and I feel much comfortable working with people more than anything else. So, at the very beginning, I started studying human resource management, but then I actually found out at a later stage that it wasn't what I wanted to do, right? So it wasn't going to benefit me. All I ever wanted was to work with people. I wanted to be around a group of people. I work best, and I actually become more productive when I'm around people. So I saw it fit that I study anthropology because that's the study, basically, for someone who doesn't know what anthropology is, it's the study of humankind. So I wanted to understand certain things about a human being, humankind, what people do, how people think, how people do things, what people choose to do, and why. Do you understand? So so that I can better treat the people or the clientele that I work with in my career space. So it was better if I just study people so that I can treat them better. I think it's very important for me to treat people the way that they think it's best for them. You know, we live in a sick society, and I don't want to add to it. So I would rather treat someone the way that they are expecting me to treat them. And in essence, trying to educate myself and literate myself in how to treat people and how people treat you. And, you know, just to know how people operate, how the society operates. And I think it's beneficial not just to me as an individual, but to my career as well, because I work with a lot of people on a daily. So it's just right that I learn how they think.
I was actually about to I was about to touch on that. It makes sense now that you would want to study anthropology, based purely for the purposes of it involving studying people, getting to know people's behaviors and the way people think and why they do the things they do. Because as an athlete, I think you also travel a lot. So obviously you meet different types of people every single time. Like you've met more, like I think you've met more people than I have, in terms of like diversity wise, because you've traveled more. So obviously you have that, and I think being an aspiring anthropologist helps with that. So you've answered my question with how and why you've decided to merge the two, the athletic side of you with your anthropology side. That makes a lot of sense. I think then my second question would be around, well, what have you, other than what you've learned about treating people, especially in your sports career, what can you tell us anthropology has taught you about culture? Culture. Yeah.
You know what? I've mentioned before, I'm a very traditional person. So I take tradition, I take religion, I take language very seriously. These are some of the elements that make up the whole person, right? So I think that's another thing that drew me to anthropology, having to learn other people's cultures, having to learn other people's traditions, values, languages, and so on and so forth. So it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot because, like I've said, like you've already mentioned that I've traveled a lot of places already, and I've seen a lot of different people. So it was very much intriguing to me. It was very interesting to me to say, this is how different other people are to me. You can learn so much by just putting yourself in other people's shoes. So in essence, I do this not just for my sake, but for other people's sake as well, just to, to let them understand how different we are. I want people to understand my tradition just as much as I want to learn theirs. I want to teach them more about my cultural background and actually learn from them. And maybe, I've noticed that having to learn from other people, there's just so many things that are similar. And because we have built up a wall between traditions and cultures and religions, we cannot get through to them, and we do not understand them, and we do not know about them because of the wall that we've placed. And the way that you would think a Zulu culture is as simple as it is just because you are Zulu or Sotho or Tsonga or whatever you call it, it's just as easy as other people would think theirs is. Do you understand? So I've learned a lot. I've learned languages. I didn't know even a single word of Xhosa, but now I can, at least engage in a proper conversation. Yeah, and this, like, people are actually shocked at the way that I've learned different languages at a very short space of time, and that's because language is everything to me. I love languages, So it comes as a package, man. It comes as a package. You learn so much, and you learn to love it. You learn to love what you're doing. You learn to love being in an anthropological space. Yeah. So yeah.
Wow. That is really interesting. That is really interesting. I think what I really want to know about culture. You mentioned that right now, culture is like a barrier, and traditions are like barriers because they keep us from getting to know one another and interacting with one another on that human level that I think we ought to be communicating and interacting with one another. Do you think in its core, or like at its purest, do you think culture was meant to be a barrier, or was it meant to be a bridge? Because I think it's possible that it could be a barrier, that it's just mainly a barrier, or it could be a bridge, and that the way we interpret our cultures and our traditions, then it then becomes something like a bridge. But initially, it was meant to be a bridge. It becomes like something like a wall. Sorry, but initially it was meant to be a bridge. What do you think?
Actually, from my perspective, I think it was initially supposed to be a barrier, but for now, because we are living in an evolving world, or timeline, we are learning that it actually has to be a bridge. Do you understand? So our forefathers were treating culture as something very sacred. So we do not share it with anyone. Hence, we do not even know what other people are doing that might be similar to what we are doing. Do you understand? So at least now we are liberal enough. We have broadened our spectrum so much that we're even willing to learn other people's traditions and cultures, and so on and so forth. So that's why now I'm saying it has to have that element of being a bridge to bring up two different or diverse cultures together, just so we can share interests, we can share knowledge. But initially, it wasn't supposed to be like that. That is the reason why in other cultural aspects, we're not supposed to share certain things. We're not supposed to share what happens at the mountains. We're not supposed to share, what's happening in the lobola negotiations. But in essence, this is happening everywhere. If we can just sit together and be like, okay, because I'm married and you are married and you are married, how do we see similarity, or what exactly do we share in that space? You are coming from a different background, I'm coming from, then you can actually find that we are doing a similar thing. We're doing one in the same thing. But because back in the days we were conditioned and we were channeled not to share information, we and then they would tell you, no, you're not supposed to. You're not, but you don't even know the reason why you're not supposed to be sharing other information. This is where we are now. But with information, I mean, with time, generations coming and going as it's going right now, I think we are learning to incorporate it and make it a bridge, not just a wall. But it's good. It's a point on its own. I think South Africa on its own, not even looking at other countries, I think we are moving into the right direction.
Wow. I don't know how it is with other cultures, but in Amazulu we have amasiko, that's culture, and then we have imikhuba, that's tradition, right? And culture is something that's practiced like throughout, generally, like this is something Amazulu do, like amalobolo.
Yes.
That's culture. It's not tradition because we all do it. It's culture. And then let's say KwaZulu, they want to marry intombazana kwaDlamini. How they then do is into kwaDlamini, that they then have imikhuba yabo, which we don't do as Amazulu, but kwaDlamini they do it. We call it imikhuba. It's imikhuba. What can I say? How can I say it in English? When you're doing something that you're not really supposed to be doing, but
I get what you say.
Yeah. We have that. So we have culture, which is broad, and then we have imikhuba, traditions, which are practiced in each individual home or homestead or whatever. I don't know how it is with other cultures, though. Is it the same or?
They do have stuff like that as well. Remember, culture is learned and it's shared, right? And all these traditions are practices which are passed on to generations. So what you have in a communal space. So I just may take a residence, a university residence, for instance. They have their own traditions, right? These are practices that have been coming from way back then. And you guys are only coming here in your first year. You are learning these traditions. So that's how we differentiate a culture and tradition. Hence, I'm always emphasizing on culture and tradition. Do you understand? Whereas with culture, culture is also learned. It's shared. So these are, I don't know how I would put it, but in any culture, we do have different traditions. So this is where in one culture, in a Zulu culture, there are different clans. And these different clans would practice different traditions altogether. And the same goes to the rest of the other cultures. They still have clans which are practicing doing things differently. So actually referring back to what I said earlier when I said, because we were never introduced to the way of sharing information. We were subjected to a wall. So this is where we actually went wrong, because right now when we are trying to understand what culture is, understanding what tradition is, we find out that we actually have similar stuff happening in our own cultures, in our own little clans. You understand? So yes, we might be sharing certain practices as well. So you find that Amampondomse are doing things this way, and then the other Xhosa, clan would do things differently. Whereas you go to a Zulu clan, it shares a practice with a Zulu clan, so to say. Hence I'm saying
similarities.
There are similarities, and at the end of the day, we must just understand, come to an understanding that we are Africans. And that's the
I was actually
unique
coming
part.
to that.
Yeah, that's the
I
unique
was
part
actually
about.
coming.
Yeah. That's the unique part about us as African people. You know, we are African. We share a lot of things, even though we might not have a baseline to say this is what we share, or we have not gotten into a discussion of saying this is exactly what we share, but we do share a lot of things.
Yeah. That's actually what I want to dive into next. How much do you know about, I think it's called the Nguni migration?
Nguni?
Nguni migration.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
the Nguni speak, I would usually just refer them to Nguni speakers, mainly because what separates them would also include a language. So all these languages, the Zulu, the Xhosa, and Swati, they all fall under Nguni. Yes. So we can go back to history about this. And this is where we would find some rich information about where South Africa comes from. Do you understand? Why are we split? Why do we have this culture and this culture? But in essence, when you try to hear this language, it's actually similar to this one. You know, it was more about power back then. You know, and people went separate ways, and this is where they would mix with a certain people, and then the language dialect changed just a bit. So that's why you would hear me saying, "Oh, uyageza." In Zulu, uyageza means something differently, and in Xhosa, it means something else. Yeah, but then you find something that actually fits perfectly with both cultures. What it says this side, it usually just goes with the other one. So they share language actually, even though it might not be a whole of it. And unfortunately, this Nguni speakers came from the middle part of Africa. That's why we have Swahili. A Swahili language is actually a bit of everything that we have in the Nguni sector. Do you understand? Yeah. That's why if we were allowed to say it, they actually fall under the Ngunis. So then we have another part where you would find the Sotho speakers, the Tswana speakers, the Bapedi, but this Nguni dialect is really on its own, and they share a lot of things as well, even the practices.
Yeah. Wow. The reason I asked is because I think the general message or the general idea behind the whole migration is how it is like how we are all somehow related. That I think that's what I wanted to touch on, because this is what I know about the Nguni migration, that we all came from the north. And obviously when you are migrating, especially at that scale and such a distance, you don't make a journey like that within a couple of weeks or within a few months. It could take you years or like whatever. So I think along the way, say perhaps me and you are brother and sister, and we are migrating from the Congo, for example. We are living from the Congo, from whatever that is chasing us away that side. We are migrating south. We reach, say, Mozambique, or we reach Botswana. You decide this land is pretty good. I think I'm going to stay here. You are my sister. And I decide, you know what? I think I'm going to go look somewhere else for something better or for something different. And then I leave you there. Now, you can obviously imagine this is back, I don't know how many years ago. There were no cell phones, no letters, no email. So obviously we couldn't stay in touch after we lost contact. So say that happened, say that scenario happened, and I somehow end up in the Free State in South Africa. I left you in Botswana, and years and years and years passed, and fast forward to 2021, your descendants are Swanas, my descendants are Sutus or Ladies or Zulus. But initially, me and you were blood relatives, and we just
Yeah.
lost touch or lost contact, whatever many years ago. I think if everyone knew that and understood how that happened, we will we will stop treating each other the way we are treating each other, especially
Yeah.
black people.
Yeah.
Because that person that you are calling a foreigner is literally your brother and your sister. Like
Mm.
it makes no sense. There is no way that they are what you call them or they are what you say they are. And you wouldn't do that to your brother. You wouldn't do that to your sister. You wouldn't burn your sister alive. You wouldn't kill your sister just because he or she came from a different country to try and do whatever in your country or in your land. You know,
Mm.
I think if we understood it that way, if we knew what that is, things would be different. Why do you think that that is not the general sense, or why do you think we don't share that common sense? Which I think it should be common, but it's not.
My guy, I'm sorry to say, but we are oppressed. We are
Mm,
oppressed, and we were oppressed by, people who were not supposed to initially lead us back in the
mm,
years. And this is not for the generation that we are currently facing. It's generations from back in the years, back
mm,
like a long time ago, right? So I think the first starting point should be our skin color.
yeah.
Whenever you see someone looking like this, you must just know this is your brother, this is your sister. Even before we can even get into any engagement, language, or, you must just know we come from this soil and we are one as Africans. Hence,
Yeah.
I think this continent is one of the richest continents ever. And that is the only reason why we we have a lot of opposition. Opposition in the sense that everyone wants what is in Africa. Do you understand? So everyone wants a piece, wants a share in Africa because
Mm,
they know the riches of this land. So
mm,
from these people coming into our own space, they changed
yeah.
our mindset. They knew if they could scatter an African child, they would have won. So they
Mm,
caused a lot of confusion in a sense that there were a lot of barriers. So people or African people were not supposed to unite at no point. Whenever they saw a united nation, they would scatter it because they knew exactly that the more they are together, the better they could operate, the better they could think, and the better they could decide. So if they shift us together and make us apart, they put
mm. Divide
borders
and conquer.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
divide
so
and
that
conquer.
at least they could actually manage or govern us in a way that they wanted. Very limiting, it's very limiting. They knew this one cannot be in the space of this one. So, which means I come here and I govern these ones and I bring them what they would want to hear from me so that they can trust me, so that they can
Mhm,
um, support what I say until I had gone so far that they could not come back to their own senses. So this is where we lost Africa, and this is where we started fighting with each other. We were made to understand that there is war. There is something called war. So we have to fight for powers.
mhm,
So then I am a South African. I have the power to own this land and say I am South African, therefore I do not want anyone from elsewhere. So it still
mhm.
carries on from back then, from a simple war zone, if I should put it like that, lack of a better word, war zone, because they've already um, manipulated an African child to think that in order for them to win, they must be in power. You cannot win alone. You cannot win collectively. You have to be alone. So that's where that's where we lost touch with our brothers and sisters. And again, as we were, as our forefathers were coming down to the to the southern Africa, I think even the language has changed, as I've told you before, because they met with a lot of different people, so the language changed a lot, and this is where you would find this one speaking this language and this one speaking this language, and that again also contributed to our separation altogether, because then other people felt superior over other people. You understand? Just in Zimbabwe alone. There's people, there's a certain group that feels superior over the other one. I don't want to mention, but just for to protect our viewers at home. But there is that sort of a confusion. I call it a confusion because people are not in their sane minds. They are not sage at this point. They don't understand what they are doing. But unfortunately, because of governance, we have been oppressed since then until now. And I think moving forward, it's going to be a struggle for us to get back that mentality of being one, of being a united nation. So it's a pity that we still find people who are treating other people in a different way, or actually ill-treating them just because they are not from their native lands. If we go back to history, this whole Africa, this whole continent belonged to the rest of us. Nobody owned anything. That's why a lot of people from outside came in and took over, and unfortunately took what belonged to us. They took our minerals, they took everything, and this is where we are standing. But an African child is a very peaceful person, is a peaceful being, it's a peaceful individual. That is the reason why God made us this way, to be able to share. We are sharing.
I know exactly.
We are very sharing. That is the reason why even today we know what had happened back then, but we are still open to sharing. And I think this is one other quality that I like about Africans. They are very much welcoming and very accommodative.
Wow. I think the message here is really simple. Based on everything that you just said, that you just touched upon, and thank you so much for that. I think the message here is really simple, that we need to come together. We need to do it together. You can't do it by yourself. This is the same thing that John was saying on Tuesday. This is the same thing that my brothers are always saying. Obviously, we need to work together. There is no way, like literally, there is no way that you can do it by yourself, especially if the vision is that big, depending on how big your vision is. I mean, even if it's something small, you still need to do it with a group of people. It's so much better that way. So to everyone that's listening, we've been going for 30 minutes, so I don't wanna bombard you guys with too much information that it becomes overwhelming. But the message is really simple here, that you need to do it. We need to do it together. We need to come together. And homework from today's webinar should be that how do you find your tribe? How do you find your people that you are going to build your dream or your vision with? We need to come. We have to do it together. Like there is no other way. So thank you so much. And that's what we're trying to do. And with support from people like you, Kesa, and your energy was great. Even on Tuesday when we had that call, you were super fun. That's why I was so excited for today's call. And so we need that energy. We need that energy that says, we need to do this thing together. Simple. Like it's hard to do, but it's simple.
Yeah, I think just adding to that, a lot of people must understand that because we have our own personal choices, does not mean we are against each other. So I think again, that's where we go wrong. When we are envisioning something bigger, we have to understand that we are different people, we think differently, and we decide differently. You understand? I think if I have to just make a quick example is back in the years, the only reason right now we still have, we find people with a similar surname just written differently is because back then there were siblings who decided differently. Do you understand? And they decided, this is where I want to lead my people, and this is this one leading his own people. We are one, but we choose different things, and we must actually respect other people's decisions and choices, just so we can actually come together and do everything together, collectively, so that we can progress in life. There is a reason why we have your Dlaminis who are written this way and this way. This is because back in the years there was a king who had sons, and these sons decided they will take after their father died. So the other one decided to go east and the other one decided to go west, and this is how everything came together. And this is why you would find Swati speakers being Dlaminis written this way, and Zulus being Dlaminis written the other way. And again, another example, this is where you find a certain church having almost it's every simple, I don't know, like, how do you put this in words, but they practice more or less the same thing. It's just that the other one has a star and the other one is a dove. But that's mainly because of what happened back at home. So we are one. We have to understand that we are different, and we have to respect. And maybe in the process of understanding other people, we might learn a lot, and that could be very much beneficial to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm gonna let
It's a pleasure, and it's good to be here, you guys. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for inviting me to your space. I'll be cheering on for you guys, and I'll be watching more of these engagements in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You've been a great.
Thank you. You've been a great sport. Pun intended. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week. No, next week it's next month. Okay, cool. We'll keep you updated as to what's happening or what's coming.
We'll be waiting.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.